All right, I'm comfortable just calling them breasts. I'm a mature man, all right, with a very, very mature audience. All right, look, let's listen to another song, okay? I got a cool one here from Andrew LeSynt. Hope that's how you say that. This guy's been making music for a long time. I just went on Bandcamp Friday and got his whole catalog. There's a lot of techno and stuff in there and some cool tunes. He put out an album called Second Chance in 2021, and it's got some cool songs on it. And this one is brought to you by my awesome Patreon supporters. In the Kroner Club, we got Hampus ML and Emil and Tim Carlton, the Golden Boner with the 50, Mr. Cisco Hold Music himself, and Jacob Wick, my semi-sonic friend, who's a super cool dude. And I hope you like this. This is Andrew LeSynt with Crazy Diamonds. And that was Crazy Diamonds by Andrew LeSynt. Brought to you by my awesome Patreon supporters. There's City Hunter, the coolest guy in town with the 42, and with the 3389, it's Brendan Decker. And Retro Serenade with the 3333. Lots of 33s here. Almost like Mr. Magoo Samurai with the 33 as well. So I hope you dug that. I actually chose sort of a different sounding song from that album, which I tend to do sometimes. If I just sit down and actually listen to somebody's album and I'm like, oh, this is some pretty good synthwave stuff. And then there's like one song that just sort of stands out to me as being kind of different and cool. Like that's the song I end up choosing. But the other song I was going to play is track number 1 on that album, and I just didn't know how to say that word. It's like the Zargassis or something. It was the... Anyway, whatever. You can let me know how to say it, and then I'll play that song, because that's a cool song, too. Okay, so I did have a question for the audience. You know, the goal with this show has always been to promote artists in the synthwave scene. I have had people who will go like, oh, why don't you play a track off The Weeknd's new album? And I'm like, because he doesn't need exposure, right? I mean, like, I get it's cool stuff, and it is synthwave, but when you're backed by, like, a huge label, I don't feel like there's any point in me exposing people to that. It's like, if you go on YouTube and you like synthwave, The Weeknd is going to show up in your feed if you're on Spotify or any other place, because when you've got a huge label backing you, they can fucking push their tracks, right? So my motto has always been to support artists who you might not have heard, and even the ones you have within the synthwave scene who could use some support and stuff like that. That's sort of the point of the show, or at least one of the points. So my question was, would anyone be interested in an actual show where we review music in the synthwave scene critically? So my motto is, if you send me music that I don't like, I just don't play it. I don't send an email back saying like, no, this is wrong for the show, or I don't like your music, or I think the vocals need work, or whatever. I don't do that sort of thing. Basically, I just play songs I think are good, and if stuff isn't good, I just don't talk about it. I don't call people out or anything like that, and that's been how I've been operating this whole time. However, sometimes I do have people who they say they want feedback. Now, I honestly don't believe they do want feedback because, well, just because. I do, you know, like when someone says, oh, just be honest, tell me how you think. Well, I think the synths sound cheap, your vocals don't sound good, and they're off-key, and a lot of this stuff you're doing is derivative. Like, do people want notes like that? Like, I don't think so. But since I have had a few people over the years ask for it, I was always curious if the audience would be interested in, like, an episode or two or something. Like, not to do all the time, but an episode where we do, and maybe I bring in some other producers as well to just talk about some of the music in the scene a bit more critically, and maybe explain why. You know, if you're an artist starting up and you go like, why don't they ever play my music? Like, actually say why, and try and do it in the most constructive way possible. But at the end of the day, even constructive criticism can be seen as an insult if you are not mentally prepared for it. So sometimes people say they want criticism, but they don't actually want criticism. So anyways, I'm just opening it up to the audience. Would you be interested in listening to an episode where instead of, you know, I just say, hey, that's a cool song, I actually play a song I wouldn't normally play on the show and say, here's why? And I guess with the artist's permission. Like if artists submit a song and say, hey, you've never played my music, you know, here's my best track or whatever, and then actually talk about it, it's something to think about. But at the same time, I have always maintained the positivity because I don't want this to be like fucking Iron Skullet or whatever, you know. And for those of you who don't remember, Iron Skullet wrote a blog where he would write very negative reviews about music in the synthwave scene that made everybody mad, and that was his claim to fame, was making people angry, which is something that is not my mission. So anyways, let's listen to some cool music and then we will keep talking. So I got one here from Rogue VHS.